What happens when a billionaire's therapy session turns into a murder scene in paradise? The early morning sun cast golden rays across the volcanic cliffs of Hawaii's Big Island as federal agents surrounded a sprawling luxury villa. Inside the pristine white walls, Victor Langford sat in handcuffs, his once commanding presence reduced to trembling hands and vacant stares. The tech mogul who had built empires with his bare hands now faced the most devastating collapse of his life. Blood stained the elegant teak floors where Dr. Lila Moreau had taken her final breath just hours before. The woman who had dedicated her career to healing the minds of powerful individuals had become the victim of the very darkness she sought to cure. Shattered glass from expensive wine bottles littered the living room, while crimson droplets marked a path from the therapeutic seating area to the floor-to-ceiling windows that once offered breathtaking views of paradise. Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to discover they were recording your every word? Have you ever felt so isolated that you'd do anything to feel in control? The answers to these questions became deadly when wealth, power, and psychological manipulation collided in one of the most exclusive retreats on Earth. This is the story of Victor Langford, a tech mogul whose quest for healing became a descent into madness. Behind his billion-dollar empire lay a fractured mind consumed by paranoia and an insatiable need to dominate every relationship in his life. When he hired Dr. Layla Moreau for an intensive therapeutic retreat in Hawaii, he believed he was purchasing salvation. Instead, he orchestrated his own destruction. The luxury villa that should have been a sanctuary became a prison. The tropical winds that whispered promises of peace carried screams of terror. The therapeutic sessions designed to heal emotional wounds became recorded confessions that would expose the darkest corners of a billionaire's soul. But how does a therapeutic retreat in Hawaii's most exclusive villa become the setting for one of the most shocking crimes ever recorded? How does a man who controls technology empires lose control so completely that he destroys the one person trying to save him? And what deadly secrets were hidden in those secret recordings that pushed a healing relationship past the point of no return? The investigation that followed would expose not just a murder, but a twisted psychology of power that proves even unlimited wealth cannot buy peace of mind. When professional boundaries shatter and trust transforms into obsession, paradise itself becomes a battleground. Before we dive into this twisted tale, hit that like button if you are ready for a story that will change how you see power forever. Victor Langford had spent 37 years building his reputation as the untouchable genius behind Nexus Technologies. His company revolutionized how the world connected, turning social media algorithms into gold mines worth over $15 billion. But wealth could not silence the voices in his head that whispered of betrayal around every corner. The tech mogul lived behind carefully constructed walls of public relations teams and security details. Every smile was calculated, every public appearance rehearsed to perfection. Yet those closest to him witnessed the cracks forming in his facade. Late-night phone calls filled with accusations against business partners, sudden firings of loyal employees he suspected of corporate espionage, security cameras installed in every room of his mansion, watching for threats that existed only in his fractured mind. Recent months had brought Victor to his breaking point. A data breach at Nexus Technologies sparked congressional investigations, while former employees leaked stories about his increasingly erratic behavior. Board members whispered about removing him from leadership. The man who built his empire on controlling information now felt the walls of his own creation closing in around him. Desperate for answers, Victor sought help from Dr. Lila Moreau, a trauma specialist whose client list read like a directory of Hollywood elite and political powerhouses. Her Beverly Hills practice catered exclusively to individuals whose public lives demanded absolute discretion. Dr. Moreau had guided senators through scandals, helped celebrities overcome addiction, and counseled tech executives through hostile takeovers. At 41 years old, Dr. Moreau possessed a rare combination of professional excellence and genuine empathy that drew powerful people to her office. She understood the unique pressures faced by those who lived under constant scrutiny. Her approach balanced clinical expertise with the warmth of someone who truly cared about healing damaged souls. Yet Dr. Moreau faced a dangerous occupational hazard. The same wealthy clients who trusted her with their deepest secrets often became obsessed with controlling their therapeutic relationships. Some viewed her as an employee to be managed rather than a professional to be respected. Others developed romantic fixations that blurred the essential boundaries between doctor and patient. When Victor contacted her office requesting an intensive retreat, Dr. Moreau initially hesitated. His reputation for volatility preceded him, but the challenge of helping someone so clearly in crisis appealed to her desire to heal. The proposed location sealed her decision, a private villa on Hawaii's Big Island where they could work without the distractions of paparazzi and board meetings. The villa itself stood as a monument to luxury and isolation. Perched on black volcanic cliffs 40 feet above the Pacific Ocean, the property offered complete privacy within its 20-acre grounds. Architecture that blended modern glass with traditional Hawaiian design created spaces that felt both intimate and expansive. Floor-to-ceiling windows dominated every room, creating transparent barriers between the therapeutic sessions and the raw power of nature outside. During the day, sunlight flooded the interior spaces, while evenings brought the soft glow of tiki torches illuminating pathways through tropical gardens. Native palms swayed in trade winds that carried the scent of plumeria blossoms mixed with salt air. The property featured multiple levels cascading down the cliff face, with outdoor lanais positioned to capture both sunrise and sunset views. A private beach accessible only by a winding stone staircase provided the ultimate escape from civilization. But isolation that promised healing could just as easily become a trap. The nearest neighbors lived 15 miles away, while the local police station required a 40-minute drive along winding coastal roads. Cell phone service remained spotty, and the property's private internet connection could be easily severed. As Victor and Dr. Moreau prepared for their therapeutic retreat, neither anticipated how the villa's beauty would mask the darkness growing within their professional relationship. The same transparent walls that invited paradise inside would soon frame a tragedy that would stain this haven forever. The first 3 days at the villa followed traditional therapeutic protocols. Dr. Moreau established boundaries while Victor shared surface-level concerns about business pressures and public scrutiny. Their sessions took place in the formal sitting room, with recording devices clearly visible and professional distance maintained. But isolation worked its magic on both minds. By the fourth evening, their conversations migrated to the outdoor lanai, where flickering torches created intimate lighting that softened clinical edges. The sound of crashing waves below provided natural white noise that made confession feel safer, more private. Victor began revealing deeper truths. He spoke about childhood abandonment by parents who viewed him as an investment rather than a son. His voice cracked, describing the loneliness of wealth that turned every friendship into a potential transaction. Dr. Moreau found herself leaning forward, offering empathy that went beyond professional compassion. The tech mogul described his empire as a prison built from his own success. Every public appearance required bodyguards who watched for threats. His personal assistant screened every phone call, every email, every human interaction. Restaurants cleared private dining rooms to ensure his safety. Friends became suspects, and lovers became potential security risks. Media surveillance consumed his thoughts. Victor detailed how paparazzi followed his every movement, turning grocery shopping into front-page entertainment. He hired private investigators to monitor journalists, creating an expensive cycle of watching and being watched. Trust became impossible when every conversation might end up in tabloid headlines. Past betrayals haunted his relationships like ghosts demanding justice. A former business partner had stolen proprietary code before selling it to competitors. A previous girlfriend had recorded private conversations before shopping them to gossip magazines. Each betrayal built higher walls around his heart, leaving him increasingly isolated within his wealth. Dr. Moreau recognized the classic symptoms of paranoid personality disorder, complicated by trauma. But the villa's isolation and Victor's magnetic personality began affecting her professional judgment. She found herself staying up late analyzing their conversations, replaying moments when his vulnerability touched something deep in her own lonely existence. Warning signs emerged as Victor's gratitude transformed into something more possessive. He questioned Dr. Moreau's other clients, demanding to know if she cared about them as much as she seemed to care about him. Late-night sessions stretched past midnight as he analyzed every word she spoke, searching for hidden meanings in therapeutic responses. The dangerous dance between care and control accelerated when Victor began testing boundaries. He offered expensive gifts that Dr. Moreau professionally declined. He suggested extending their retreat indefinitely, promising to pay whatever amount necessary to keep her exclusive attention. When she reminded him about ethical guidelines, his expression darkened with familiar paranoia. Victor started recording their sessions without permission, claiming he wanted to study her techniques for personal growth. He questioned her motives with increasing frequency, wondering aloud whether she actually cared about his healing or simply enjoyed the prestige of treating a billionaire client. Professional discussions became interrogations filled with accusations wrapped in vulnerability. Dr. Moreau attempted to re-establish boundaries, but isolation had already shifted their dynamic past safe territory. Victor's need for control battled against her therapeutic training, creating tension that charged the tropical air like gathering storm clouds. Detective Kiehia Kana would later walk through these same rooms where healing had transformed into obsession. Blood evidence would tell the story that words could no longer explain. Shattered glass and overturned furniture would map the final moments when professional care became personal tragedy. The detective's trained eye would recognize the progression from hope to horror written in the villa's architecture. Torch sconces that once created intimacy now seemed to mock the darkness that grew between doctor and patient. The transparent walls that invited paradise inside had become windows into a mind too damaged to accept help. Every room would speak of boundaries crossed and trust corrupted. The formal sitting room where therapy began would contrast sharply with the lanai where professional distance died. Evidence would show how isolation and wealth conspired to turn healing into horror. If you have ever wondered how therapeutic relationships can turn deadly, make sure to subscribe because this story gets much darker. Thursday evening brought oppressive humidity that pressed against the villa like a suffocating blanket. Dark clouds gathered over the Pacific, blocking moonlight and transforming the tropical paradise into a fortress of shadows. Inside the glass walls, Victor paced the living room while Dr. Moreau attempted to maintain therapeutic calm despite the electricity crackling through the air. Rain began as scattered drops against the floor-to-ceiling windows, but within minutes transformed into torrents that hammered the glass like angry fists. The storm outside provided a soundtrack for the tempest raging within Victor's mind as weeks of suppressed paranoia finally erupted. "You think I do not see what you are doing," Victor accused, his voice cutting through the thunder that shook the villa's foundation. "Every question you ask, every response you give, it is all calculated manipulation." Dr. Moreau maintained her professional composure despite the accusation that struck at the heart of her integrity. "Victor, we have made significant progress during our time here. These feelings of suspicion are symptoms we can work through together." "Work through?" Victor laughed bitterly, the sound harsh against the gentle crash of waves below. "You have been studying me like a laboratory specimen, documenting my weaknesses for your own benefit." Lightning illuminated the room in stark white flashes, revealing Victor's face twisted with rage and betrayal. Dr. Moreau recognized the dangerous shift in his demeanor, but remained seated in her chair, projecting calm authority, even as her heart rate accelerated. "Your feelings are valid," she responded carefully, "but I need you to help me understand what has triggered this change in perspective." Victor stopped pacing and fixed his gaze on her with laser intensity. "I know about your recordings." The words hit Dr. Moreau like physical blows. Professional recordings were standard practice, but something in Victor's tone suggested knowledge of unauthorized documentation. "Our sessions are recorded with your consent for therapeutic purposes," she replied, confusion evident in her voice. "Not those recordings," Victor sneered, producing a small digital device from his pocket. "These recordings." He pressed play, and Dr. Moreau's voice filled the room through hidden speakers she had never noticed. Her private phone conversations with colleagues, discussions about Victor's case that should have remained confidential, personal reflections she had recorded for her own therapeutic processing. Horror washed over her as she realized the extent of Victor's surveillance. Every private moment during their retreat had been captured and stored. Her professional ethics demanded complete confidentiality, yet she had unknowingly been under constant observation. "How dare you?" she whispered, standing from her chair with indignation overwhelming her fear. "This is a complete violation of every boundary that makes therapy possible." "Boundaries?" Victor's voice rose to match the thunder outside. "You speak of boundaries while dissecting my mind for your research, while discussing my private pain with your colleagues." Rain pounded against the windows with increasing fury as Dr. Moreau realized her attempts to process Victor's complex case with supervisors had been captured and twisted into evidence of betrayal. The isolation she had thought would help their therapeutic work had become a trap where privacy became impossible. "Those conversations were clinical consultations to ensure your best care," she explained, moving toward the exit as Victor's agitation escalated beyond anything she had witnessed. "Clinical consultations," he repeated mockingly, blocking her path to the door. "You reduced my childhood trauma to case study material. You laughed about my fears with your colleagues." "That is not what happened," Dr. Moreau insisted. but her professional training warned her that rational explanation had become impossible. Victor's paranoid delusions had transformed therapeutic supervision into personal attack. The confrontation escalated when Victor grabbed her arm, demanding she admit to manipulating him for professional gain. Dr. Moreau pulled away, her movement knocking over an expensive vase that shattered against the teak floor. The sound triggered something primal in Victor's damaged psyche. Physical struggle erupted as weeks of suppressed rage exploded into violence. Victor's superior strength overwhelmed Dr. Moreau's attempts to defend herself as they crashed into furniture that had witnessed healing conversations now turned deadly. The elegant coffee table collapsed under their weight, sending medical journals flying across the room. Rain continued its relentless assault on the glass walls as the struggle intensified. Dr. Moreau fought with desperation born of survival instinct, but Victor's obsession had transformed him into something beyond reason or mercy. The therapeutic seating area where they had shared vulnerable moments became a battleground where healing died. The irreversible moment came when Victor's hands found Dr. Moreau's throat, squeezing until her struggles weakened and finally stopped. The woman who had dedicated her life to healing minds became the victim of the very darkness she had tried to cure. Blood stained the pristine teak floors where Dr. Moreau fell, her life ending among the scattered papers and broken furniture that had once created a sanctuary for therapeutic work. The elegant decor bore witness to brutality that transformed paradise into a crime scene that would haunt Hawaii forever. Detective Kiahi Akana received the emergency call at 5:30 in the morning, while storm winds still battered her modest home in Hilo. Born and raised on the Big Island, she possessed an intuitive understanding of how isolation and island psychology could transform ordinary people into dangerous predators. Her 22 years investigating crimes across Hawaii had taught her that paradise often masked humanity's darkest impulses. Akana's grandmother had been a traditional Hawaiian healer who taught her to read people through subtle body language and vocal patterns. This cultural wisdom, combined with modern investigative training, made her uniquely qualified to handle cases involving psychological manipulation and violence. The 40-minute drive to the crime scene proved treacherous as flooding blocked several coastal roads. When Akana finally reached the villa, she immediately recognized the challenges facing her investigation. The remote location meant limited backup, contaminated evidence from the storm, and a crime scene that wealthy suspects might attempt to manipulate through expensive legal teams. Victor Langford waited in the living room, his designer clothes torn and stained with blood he claimed resulted from attempting to revive Dr. Moreau. His story painted him as a tragic victim who discovered his therapist's suicide after she became overwhelmed by guilt over secretly recording their sessions. "I found her like this when I returned from my evening walk," Victor explained, his voice trembling with manufactured emotion. "She must have realized how her violations of trust had damaged our therapeutic relationship." Akana listened without comment while studying the scene that contradicted Victor's narrative at every turn. The shattered furniture suggested violent struggle rather than solitary suicide. Blood spatter patterns indicated movement during the attack, not the static positioning of self-inflicted wounds. Most damaging defensive wounds on Dr. Moreau's hands proved she had fought for her life. The detective discovered Victor's hidden recording equipment throughout the villa, revealing the extent of his surveillance operation. Digital timestamps showed recordings continuing during the murder, capturing Victor's voice making threats and Dr. Moreau's pleas for mercy. The technology that Victor had used to violate therapeutic boundaries now provided irrefutable evidence of his guilt. Forensic analysis revealed fingerprint evidence on Dr. Moreau's throat and DNA under her fingernails from scratching her attacker. The staged positioning of her body contradicted natural death patterns, while the cleanup attempts had only highlighted the violence that preceded them. International media descended on Hawaii like hungry predators sensing blood. Satellite trucks lined the coastal highway, while news helicopters circled the villa despite police restrictions. The story combined every element that captured global attention: billionaire scandals, tropical paradise, psychological manipulation, and murder. Cable news networks provided round-the-clock coverage as details emerged about Victor's surveillance activities and Dr. Moreau's attempts to maintain professional boundaries. Legal experts debated the ethics of therapeutic relationships, while crime analysts dissected the psychological profile of a billionaire killer. The media frenzy exposed how wealth and power had enabled Victor's increasingly dangerous behavior. Former employees shared stories about his paranoid management style, while previous therapists revealed how he had attempted to control their professional relationships through financial intimidation. Social media exploded with discussions about therapeutic ethics and the dangers faced by mental health professionals treating wealthy clients. The hashtag Justice for Leela trending worldwide as people demanded accountability for those who exploited healing relationships for personal gain. Detective Akana worked methodically through the media chaos, building an airtight case that even Victor's expensive legal team could not dismantle. Digital evidence, forensic proof, and witness testimony created an overwhelming portrait of premeditated murder disguised as therapeutic crisis. The investigation proved that unlimited wealth could not purchase innocence when evidence spoke louder than expensive lawyers. Paradise had witnessed evil, but Hawaiian justice would ensure that truth prevailed over power. Comment below, what would you have done if you discovered someone was secretly recording your most vulnerable moments? Federal agents arrived at the villa 48 hours after Detective Akana completed her preliminary investigation. A convoy of black vehicles wound through the coastal roads as helicopters provided aerial surveillance to prevent any escape attempts. The same isolation that had enabled Victor's crimes now trapped him within the scene of his violence. Victor Langford stood in the blood-stained living room, his billion-dollar empire crumbling around him as agents read his rights. The commanding presence that had intimidated boardrooms and competitors had collapsed into trembling hands and desperate denials. His expensive clothes hung wrinkled and stained, while his usually perfect hair fell across his face in greasy strands. "You do not understand the pressure I was under," Victor pleaded as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "She was manipulating me, using my vulnerabilities against me. I was defending myself from psychological attack." The federal agents remained unmoved by his justifications. Evidence spoke louder than emotional appeals, and Victor's recorded confessions had eliminated any reasonable doubt about his guilt. The man who had built his fortune on controlling information now faced the consequences of technology turning against him. Detective Akana watched the arrest with grim satisfaction, knowing that justice would finally be served for Dr. Moreau. The therapist who had dedicated her life to healing damaged minds deserved better than becoming a victim of the darkness she had tried to cure. The trial began 6 months later, in Honolulu's federal courthouse, where media crews transformed the surrounding blocks into a carnival of sensationalism. News vans lined every available parking space, while reporters provided live updates from courthouse steps. International correspondents analyzed every detail of the proceedings for audiences hungry for scandal involving wealth and violence. Inside the courtroom, Victor's defense team attempted to portray him as a mentally ill victim driven to temporary insanity by therapeutic malpractice. They argued that Dr. Moreau's recording of private conversations constituted professional misconduct that justified his emotional breakdown. Prosecution experts demolished these claims through detailed testimony about power dynamics and psychological manipulation. Dr. Rebecca Chen, a forensic psychologist, explained how wealthy individuals often attempt to control therapeutic relationships through financial intimidation and emotional manipulation. Mr. Langford exhibited classic narcissistic behaviors combined with paranoid delusions, Dr. Chen testified. His surveillance activities and boundary violations represent calculated attempts to dominate a professional relationship, not symptoms of mental illness. The Hawaiian community struggled to process how their peaceful islands had become the setting for such calculated violence. Local residents packed the courthouse gallery, seeking understanding about how paradise could harbor such darkness. Many questioned whether their isolated paradise was truly safe from the corrupting influence of extreme wealth. Jury deliberation lasted only 18 hours before returning a guilty verdict on charges of first-degree murder. Victor's expression remained blank as the judge sentenced him to life imprisonment without possibility of parole, his billion-dollar empire powerless to purchase freedom from justice. Detective Akana reflected on the case's impact during quiet moments walking the beaches where she had grown up. The investigation had revealed how wealth could corrupt healing relationships and transform therapeutic sanctuaries into crime scenes. Her island home had witnessed evil, but the community's response proved that justice could prevail over power. The case exposed vulnerabilities in Hawaii's isolated paradise that residents had never considered. Wealthy individuals could purchase privacy that enabled dangerous behaviors while remaining beyond the reach of normal social oversight. The villa that had hosted Victor's crimes stood empty, a monument to the dangers of unchecked power and corrupted healing. Local mental health professionals organized training sessions about recognizing dangerous client behaviors and maintaining professional boundaries under pressure. Dr. Moreau's death had taught painful lessons about the risks faced by those who dedicated their lives to healing powerful individuals with damaged souls. The tragedy of Victor Langford and Dr. Leela Moreau teaches us painful truths about the delicate balance between healing and harm. Professional boundaries exist not as barriers to connection, but as protective frameworks that keep both therapist and client safe from dangerous emotional entanglements. When those boundaries dissolve, therapeutic relationships can transform into psychological battlegrounds where lives are lost. Power without accountability corrupts absolutely, regardless of intelligence or success. Victor's billions could not purchase the peace of mind he desperately sought, nor could they justify the violence he inflicted on someone trying to help him. Wealth that isolates individuals from normal social consequences creates dangerous conditions where paranoia and control can flourish unchecked. Trust, once shattered, can trigger devastating consequences that extend far beyond the original betrayal. Victor's discovery of surveillance recordings destroyed the therapeutic alliance and unleashed homicidal rage that cost Dr. Moreau her life. The very technology he used to violate her privacy became evidence that ensured his conviction. Mental health support requires ethical frameworks that protect vulnerable individuals on both sides of the therapeutic relationship. Professionals who work with powerful clients face unique pressures that demand specialized training and ongoing supervision to prevent boundary violations and recognize warning signs of dangerous dependency. The luxury villa where healing became horror now stands as a monument to tragedy, forever reminding Hawaii's community about the darkness that wealth can hide. Local mental health organizations developed new protocols for treating high-profile clients, while law enforcement agencies created specialized units for investigating crimes involving psychological manipulation. Warning signs that emerged during Victor's treatment, excessive gift-giving, boundary testing, surveillance activities, and possessive behaviors, now appear in training materials used by therapists worldwide. Dr. Moreau's death sparked international discussions about protecting mental health professionals from dangerous clients who view therapeutic relationships as transactions to be controlled. Paradise remains beautiful, but forever changed by the knowledge that human souls possess equal capacity for healing and destruction. The same isolation that makes Hawaii attractive to wealthy visitors can enable predatory behaviors when combined with unlimited resources and damaged psychology. We must recognize that dependency relationships, whether therapeutic, romantic, or professional, require constant vigilance against manipulation and control. The most dangerous predators often appear as vulnerable individuals seeking help, using their apparent weakness to exploit the compassion of those who dare to care. This story should remind us all to value the healers in our lives and respect the boundaries that keep us safe. Like this video, if it opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe for more stories that reveal the truth behind the headlines.